Now, Faker, it's true, in real life he does seem to be quite an intelligent guy, quite a unique guy. You can tell from just his demeanor and the way he talks, he is kind of a bit of an alien, a bit different from the rest of us. But in-game, he has the highest in-game intelligence I've ever seen from any player. Or at least he displays it. The highest in-game IQ in terms of understanding of how to make a play, what play is possible, how to execute the play, what plays to chain together, because some of these he can't be knowing what the enemy's going to do in response. So he's making these decisions. Decision point, do it. The enemy does something. Another decision point, acts on it. Another decision point, acts on it. And that's why when you get these plays where he does 3 or 4 things and chains a full combo of all the abilities, but zones a guy into the next ability and gets the kill at the end in a scenario where you think he's going to die and he should die and he's versus a very good player on their champion. That's why in such a scenario, it looks like almost like it had to be calculated. Like, how could he know that this was going to come next? He doesn't, but he's so good, and his practice level is so good, and his mind for the game is so keyed in. His in-game IQ is so high that it looks as if it was calculated, but actually it's instinctual. That's what makes it even more incredible than it already is. It just felt like a rhythm, kind of a flow, kind of a zone he would get into, but he wasn't consciously thinking of it. He even used to say, like, my hands felt like they were moving so fast, and the whole point is he's trained himself and his talents to the level that they can almost just be unlocked instantly from if he can imagine something in his mind, his hands just make it happen. It's not like he thinks then, and I have to do this, and then I'm going to do that. It just happens, and then his instinctual ability to play the game is unparalleled in the sense of brutal, in that very specific sense. That's what Faker's skills are like. Now, you want to talk about champions. This is an area where no one can compare to him in history. Even the roles like top lane, jungle, which have wide pools in history of champions that are available, and the great players, some of them are meta resistant and can move through them. No one has the mastery of champions that Faker has. His champion pool is the biggest ever in history of any role, of any player, but his mastery of specific champions is unreal. I mean, first and foremost, let's just talk about champions in terms of mastery, like champions that he's the best at. He's the best to ever play at. Okay, so we'll start with the obvious one, Zed. Everyone remembers the Ryu outplay.
Like, even though I only have a mat on the floor, I think he's in the bed. Oh, Faker maybe in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves. Faker, what was that?
Faker with a huge play, the QSS.
I can't believe I just saw
he
that.
actually won that duel.
I can't believe that happened.
He's the best Zed ever. He's never lost on Zed as far as I know. His Zed is, we've had a lot of great Zed players when Zed was OP, especially like in Europe. We had people like Ryu in Korea. Players who were really great Zed players. Goon, no one could actually compare to Faker's Zed. He just took that champion, which had so many playmaking opportunities and could be so dangerous with that assassination potential there, capacity, and he just took it to a level no one else could ever go to. His Zed, absolutely superlative. The best ever, for certain. No one has ever been able to consistently get that kind of flawless animation cancelling an ability to get all the combo out and auto attacks as Faker has. He's been able to just do plays that are unreal on this champion. It's not surprising that he's so good at it. So you can see what I mean. This guy's not just a god, but then the breadth of he's got the highest talent level, like the most vertical skill, but then also the breadth, the sheer depth, the depth of his pool of mastery and ability and overall abilities is absolutely unreal as well. So let's talk about that. What other qualities make him so great? As well as incredible skill, champions he can play on, understanding of matchups. Well, how about the fact that he is the ultimate impact player? Now, it's true to a degree, like I won't say overall, that the mid lane in general has been able to abuse and have more impact on the game than any other role in League of Legends history. Like, you look for all-time great teams, they've all got at least a good, if not an all-time great mid laner. Now, admittedly, you do have names like Wei Xiao, Mata, who can be at other roles, and Dandy, and be gods from those roles and have an incredible impact. But he's not only playing the best role to have an impact, he's the best player in that role, and then in terms of the sheer impact he can have in the game, he's the best. So, okay, as a mid laner, he's the best mid laner ever. I said to them, okay, even the gods of the other positions, Wei Xiao, Flame, Froggen, Diamond Prox, Dade, whoever you want to pick, they've all had periods where they had a bunch of bad games, or they had specific bad games that stick in your mind. It's no exaggeration, despite what an incredibly, the most aggressive playing style, the most hard impact focused carry style that Faker has, despite that, that should lead to plenty of bad games. But actually, it's no exaggeration that at least before this last split, you could actually count every truly bad game from Faker individually on 2 hands, as in there were less than 10 in history. Despite all those games played, he really had less than 10 games in history where he played badly individually and was in part of the reason why they lost the game and didn't play up to their level expected of him. That's how exceptional he was, because he could always find a way to get something out of the game, to contribute something in the game. Even his everyday level, his B, C, and D game is exceptional and has nearly always been exceptional. But other than that, in general, he doesn't tilt. Like, what's insane is under pressure, he's the best player ever in League of Legends history in that sense as well. His ability to do those comebacks like against KT Bullets and to hard carry the team out of situations, to be down in lane and still find a way to win the team fights. The problem with Faker is he's so good that he's set the expectation for what a great player like him should be able to do so high that first of all, no one else can match it for the periods of time he is. But actually, we now, as bizarrely, do take it for granted. Like, think about this. Even if you are a god, even if you are the best player at your time in some sense, it doesn't mean that you have to be also a god under clutch. In fact, what's funny is in a lot of sports, there are great clutch players who aren't that great otherwise as players. Like, no one's going to call Paul Pierce in basketball the best player of his generation, but a very, very clutch player, yes. A very good player and a very clutch player as well. Is so underrated in Faker. It's just a quality that, like, it's already enough to be the best ever, to have the deepest champion pool, to be the best at 1v1, best at laning, the best at outplays, the best matchups, the best instinctual ability to make plays, the best ability to come from behind, and then after all of that, to be the best clutch player as well, and the best and most consistent performance level. You're starting to get a sense now, I hope, of why this guy is not just the best league player ever, he's one of the best esports players ever to play, and probably it's very unlikely when you think how many qualities I'm defining here that there will ever be a league player who can compare to this. Yes, there could be a player who's the best, there could be a player maybe who could even be as good skill wise, but would they be as good as in the clutch? Would they have as deep a champion pool? Would they be able to hard carry to the same extent? Would they be able to play from behind the same way? Would they have the same in-game intelligence for how to make plays, how to make out plays, how to respond to scenarios? Would they be the same impact player in terms of drawing certain bans and being able to be aggressive and playmaking all forms of the game? Probably not. That's why, truly, Faker has no rivals. Pawn is only his rival in as much as when they play each other, Pawn can get the better of him. But Pawn against the rest of the field, the other great mid laners in the world, is not as good as Faker is. No one truly, at mid lane or as a LoL player, is Faker's rival. The only rivals he really has are the other godlike, gifted, golden children, the one-offs in the other games, like the Flashes, the Cyphers, the Neos. Maybe they're his peers, but that's the only real peer group you can form. No one from League of Legends can even get into the conversation with him. And so I hope I've outlined not only what makes him great as a League player, but just what makes him special in almost every regard. Such a unique player, and you will never see a player like this again ever in League of Legends. Whether he drops off and doesn't become as good, there will never be a player who is as good in all these areas for as long, for as often, and with this much impact on the game.
We talk about a lot of different games on Top 10 Gaming, but I have to admit, League of Legends is probably one of my all-time favorites. There are over 100 million people who play this game every single month. So, to be called one of the best, you have to be insanely good. Now, if you want to see what a true champion looks like, this right here is the Top 10 League of Legends greatest players of all time. At number 1, it is, of course, Faker. The craziest thing about Faker is that he truly is in a league of his own. For the past 3 years, this list you've been watching right now could have shifted around with players coming in and going, but the number 1 spot would never change. Faker is the best League of Legends player of all time. He joined SKT as a promising up-and-coming talent, consistently outplaying his more experienced opponents in the mid lane with the sharpest mechanics a lot of people had ever seen. As Faker smashed anything Korea put in front of him, SKT began to build their team around him, and his opponents threw everything into stopping him. No matter how hard they camped him though, Faker pulled through. Through metas from assassins to control mages, Faker began to crush any players or team from around the world. At the time of recording this video, Faker has won 3 world championships with SKT, a feat only managed by his former teammate Bengi.
Emily, moving back to Faker himself, he's now played in 8 LCK finals with 7 wins and a 22-6 overall game record. So putting you on the spot with this, in the pantheon of all-time great League of Legends players, given this on Faker's resume, where do you rank him?
I mean, I still think that Faker is the greatest of all time, despite his, obviously, like, his slump last year. And I think you can make the argument that there have been better players at different times, right? Like, Faker still might not be the best player in the world at this moment. But I do think if you're looking at his League of Legends career as a whole, what he's done for the game, like how his play has affected how people actually look at the game itself, I think there's no arguments.
Even though you might think our lists are like way different, we definitely have some differences we'll get into.
We do.
I think we have a lot of players that ended up coming out like exactly the same, including our number 1 player at Worlds, which is always something that we talk about, Faker. Why did you put him there?
So for me, Faker was someone who had a rough spring split, but a fantastic MSI. And I felt that during the summer split, he changed his playstyle a little bit, which ultimately hurt him as a laner, but I think made him more of a complete player. And I have to give a lot of credit to Atlas because I think he summarized it very well. He explained to me that he thought that in spring, Faker was a lot more selfish and he played more for himself, whereas in summer, he played a lot more for his team and almost changed his perspective to play more towards Clid rather than forcing Clid to play to him. And I think that that evolution and transition that SKT went through the summer split made him more complete as a player. And I think that especially in playoffs, we really got to see that work out for Faker.
Yes.
And when we tie that into the fact that I rate consistency, international performance, and recent performance, he kind of ticked all the boxes because you can never say, especially you just look at MSI's, his most recent international performance, right? He popped off in that tournament. He looked fantastic. He was almost the reason that they were able to beat G2 in that full best of 5.
But I agree with everything you said about Faker. And for me as well, for number one, the name does carry a lot of weight for me in the fact that literally everyone who plays against him, especially some of the younger players, would have grown up like wanting to be Faker. I mean, it's even a meme for some people whenever they play really well. Oh, I'm Faker, right? They say it in solo queue, they say it in team comms, they say it during stage games. And then the cherry on top was the playoffs that you pointed out, where Faker and Clid, I feel like just ran through the LCK.
They did?
They definitely had some questionable stuff in spring, MSI, and in summer. But for me, when I come into this and I think SKT is the best team heading into the World Championship, it's always got to be about Faker, even if his year-wide numbers don't say he was the best because his kills aren't completely popping off, but he does so much for the game post 20 minutes, and those things don't show up on the stat sheets, but it's the reason I put Faker.